All right, so we finally have Mr. Forrest Laurent join us today. What's up, Dre?
Hello, hello.
But yes, okay. Welcome to Self Care Safari podcast. I'm your girl Safari, and today, like I said, we have a special guest named Forrest Laurent. And just to give a little bit of background on this guy here, I am a huge fan. Like I've been
Oh,
watching his
mm,
content for a while. And I don't know, it was a shot in the dark. I guess it was God saying, like, just shoot your shot, whatever. But I was scrolling through his content, messaged him, and was just like, look, I really want you to be a part of my show. And not only did he respond, he also liked my content. So I was like, oh my God. But so yeah, he agreed to be on the podcast, and I'm extremely grateful for it. So tell the people a little bit about yourself, Forrest, and we can go ahead and get started.
this question is always hard to answer. I'm not good at talking about myself. So,
Mm.
um, 32-year-old man, no children, no wife, I'm just out here. But um, I don't consider myself a teacher, life coach, therapist. I try to be impactful and effective. And, I think because I'm a communicator, I've always been an effective communicator through writing. And then my natural proclivity for film and photography, I just merged the two. I merged, my gift with my passion, and that's kind of what how I became what I became as far as like the engagement I have, the impact that I have. So, it wasn't planned. I didn't try to be this, this person that I am now. It just kind of came about by itself. So yeah.
I love that. It's the humbleness for me. No, 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 but yeah, so he is definitely and I like to call him an influencer, but like he explained, he's like a life coach. He what I love about it the most is that he's giving healing advice from a male's perspective. And I think that's so needed because it's a lot of women, it's a lot of people out here who talk about those topics, but
Mhm.
they don't do it the way that he does it. Like it just he does it in a way that's relatable. It's down to earth and it's grounded. So I love that. But yes, y'all. So today's topic is actually going to be about spiritual alignment, leadership, and the realities of having a platform. So I just want to start off by saying, first of all, I was listening to a sermon by Pastor Ture. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he's a pastor that I listen to, and he was speaking on something about leadership that says you never lose when you're a leader, you never lose the opportunity to be a leader, meaning that when you're leading someone in a way, you can either lead someone to the water and lead them to prosperity, or you can
Okay,
lead them to hopelessness. So even
gotcha.
when you have that leadership anointing, you never lose it. So you have to use it with care. But
Hmm.
I
I
just
agree.
wanted to start off by saying that because leadership is a very loaded word, but a lot of people a lot of people don't know how to handle it in an effective way. So I want to open up the floor or really just ask you like how do you handle your leadership and your platform?
Man, it's a everyday process of learning because I've never the thing about me that's interesting is that growing up, I was always behind the scenes. I've never been in a leadership role until ministry came up. And ministry came up when I was about 18. So um since then I've always had a certain level of understanding that leaders are always, you know, they're always being looked at, they're always under the microscope, they're always, kind of, on the hot seat, and you have to walk on eggshells a bit. Um, but that was, in my opinion, it was an unhealthy form of leadership because when you grow up thinking that you have to be perfect, it's not healthy, and that's a foundation that's unrealistic. You're never going to be perfect. So um, I kind of shied away from leadership after that because I got hurt in that experience in that church, and so for 10 consecutive years, I was in the background intentionally. I didn't want to be
Mm.
in the spotlight, so I never really developed any leadership skills, and I was always, behind the scenes with the camera, so I never was in front of people. So everything that you see now is literally me learning as I go. And one thing I have learned is that leadership is it's not as difficult as people think it is when it's genuine.
Mm.
Um, what I learned is that, because of the energy that I give off, because of the trajectory of my life, because of the platform, because of the comments and the engagement, because it's all coming from a genuine place within me. I don't have to try to put on, or I don't have to try to, step outside of who I am to be a good leader or to lead the people that in a sense follow me in a sense, because they showed up for me in my genuine form and fashion. So I can be myself and I don't have to compromise who I am to continue leading these people, leading them. So I think if your platform, if whatever you're doing is from a genuine place, being a leader will be that much more easy. It will be much easier and it'll be much more sustainable because you don't have to wake up every day putting on a mask that doesn't belong to
Mm.
you.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the main things I've learned is that the more genuine you are and the more authentic you are with yourself and how you're leading people and how you're doing what you do, I think you naturally become by default a leader among men. And that's what happened to me. I didn't ask to be a leader or have this community that I have and nothing like that. It just ended up coming into being. And because I think me being who I am was a spearhead of that. I don't have to change the direction of my arrow. It is what it is. So I think it's easier for me to lead because it's from a genuine place, and
Yeah.
that's how I see it at least.
I love that. And you actually touched on something that was really important. You said that you didn't start off a leader. Like it was something that kind of
Oh no,
emerge naturally. And I love that because it's so true. For me personally, a lot of my upbringing stemmed from silence a little bit. Like I was shy. So for me to go from being so sheltered and closed off to now being feeling comfortable enough to post my content, it is a process. So I appreciate that you spoke on that because a lot of people think that you're supposed to be in a specific place or a specific time like confidence doesn't just always come naturally. I feel like that's something you have to grow into as a person. So I
right,
definitely
right,
agree with that. But
definitely.
what do you feel like gave you that push? Like, do you feel do you feel like with the platform that you have, the leadership is like, are you aware of the fact that you do have people that actually like listen and follow? Like, how does that affect you? Does that affect your authenticity at all? Like, do you kind of feel like you have to dim yourself down a little bit to make it more
Um,
consumable? Like, how does that work?
no, honestly,
No.
and that's the liberating thing about it is that you hear a lot of leaders talk about how heavy is the head that wears a crown and things like that. And you hear them talk about all of these different scenarios you're thrown into when you have to. And I'm not going to lie, it is tough. There are situations where you have to do damage control. You have to, check on people. You have to make sure anything that was said on a live or in a video didn't offend them if they feel offended, things like that. Um, so there is a certain level of delicacy that goes into, being a leader. You have to be very delicate sometimes. But there is no you know, there is nothing that really I can point to where it makes me scared or makes me nervous or gives me that anxiety, the bubbly stomach. It doesn't really happen. I think at first it did because I was stepping into a new arena of my life where I was in front of people and people actually value what I had to say. And I think when I realized that what I say touches people and I have to be responsible with the platform.
Yeah.
Um, that's the only type of pressure I feel is that, people actually listen to me. Like people DM me, can you go live tonight? Are you going? Because that's different for me. I'm not used to people actually wanting to hear what I have to say and stopping, their nightly routine or stopping what they're doing to tune into my live and or listening to what they're cooking or feeding their kids and but and that by extension means I'm pouring into the kid too because the kid can hear me. There's all those different things that go into it. Um, but to answer your question, no, that doesn't really get to me. It did at first because, like I said, it was new, but now is what it is. I
Yeah.
embrace it.
I love
So,
that. And I feel like that's the main reason why I ask is because a lot of people go into this whole like social media platform or influencer thinking that you have to put on a specific persona. And
mhm.
I feel like there's two different ways that you can come up and succeed. Like you can either do it by being everything that you think people want you to be and create that persona and be that person and lose yourself in that identity, or you can be your authentic self and make room for you. And I feel like sometimes you have to, the only way you can decide between the two is, like you said, like it has to come from genuine confidence. It can't come from a place of lack, which is something that I actually wanted to touch on because I feel like sometimes when we are trying to manifest success, we have to check our intentions behind our desires because sometimes you can manifest from a place of poverty consciousness. Meaning, I want to manifest success because I wasn't seen as a child, I wasn't heard as a child. So my success isn't stemming from I want to help people, or I want to reach different people. It's coming from I want to be seen and I want to be
Yeah.
validated. So I
Right.
feel like that can be kind of hard. And I kind of wanted to ask you
Mhm.
about that too, because what is it exactly that you're trying to get out of your platform? Like, are you trying to like long term, right? What is it that what's your message? What's the end goal in all of this and what behind what you do?
You know the crazy thing, Safari? I don't have one because, like I said, I didn't want what I have now. Like, if you know this, you know the story about how I started the videos. I was angry one day, depressed, dejected, angry at God, nothing to show for it, 31 years old, not much money in my pocket, no future, no career, no degree, just living and just wandering earth. And I was, God told me, He said, do something, in the next hour that means something to you, no matter what it is. I don't care what it is, but do something that you feel brings you purpose.
Yeah.
And, I did that. And the videos are what came about of that. I talked for about 30 minutes on camera. I had on a dingy gray suit, a gray sweatsuit, excuse me, and my camera set up. And I just turned it on, started talking. That was it. And that's where it all started. So when I started doing this, it was more so out of a necessity, like the need for me to feel some type of purpose. And I think that's the only kind of necessity, only kind of fuel that will keep you going even after you reach certain landmarks, like certain financial goals or certain plateaus or certain, because if it's purpose fueled, then you wake up every day understanding like this is what brings me purpose and this is what impacts, like this is who I am. And I think that's why the fuel never changed and never stopped because there is no real angle, there's no monetary goal, there's no none of that. It's really me waking up every day and genuinely enjoying that I'm living within my purpose and it's helping and it's impacting people. And that brings me so much freedom and joy. And like I go back to what I said before, I do that and I don't have to compromise who I am. That's my favorite part is that I literally can wake up, be purposeful, be impactful, and be myself. You can't beat that. And so to answer your question, I don't really have like an end goal. Now, here's the thing. In this walk, I've learned that I do want this to end up sustaining me. I don't want to just do this for the likes or for the views and not like that. Um, but in this life, I feel like I could do a lot more if I could focus solely on this type of impact. And to do that, I need to up my business IQ, my business acumen, my business acuity, my feel for, monetization, things like that. So of course, there are different things and different ideas and different realities that are presented to me the higher I go. And I think I have to remain humble and remain integral in my pursuits. So if that's what you mean, then definitely I understand that.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but as far as like, a specific goal in mind, I don't really have one. Just wake up every day and be effective. Now, I think the way that looks might change. The more I do this, it might go from doing videos on Instagram to doing videos on, YouTube or Netflix or, I had a TV deal with Roku TV. Didn't pan out because I ended up moving to Houston. But just a simple fact that I was presented with that I think was a sign from God. Like, but listen, I can open doors for this to go as far as you want it to go, but it depends on how obedient you'll be
Mm,
and how integral you'll stay through the process. So I think it will change. The content will change, the goals will change, but the purpose, the fuel, like what I want to get out of it, is not really anything specific. It's just me waking up every day and loving what I do.
I understand. Well, the main reason why I asked is because sometimes what you originally, I feel like when you choose a path or a career or whatever God like leads you to, sometimes it can
Mm-hmm.
start off being poverty driven or start off being, like you said, like it can start off in lack, meaning I started this as a way to vent. I started this as a way to like just be an outlet for my pain. And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
as you grow, it starts to change because I don't speak about this much, but I was prophesied over, like not too, yes, it was long. It was like 5 years ago. But there was
Okay, okay.
someone, there was someone who actually prophesied over me and spoke something over my life about the vision God has for me. And it really it tripped me up because he said it in a season in my life when I was very like down. I was out, and I just felt like I didn't know where to go. I didn't have any sense of direction. But that prophecy really stayed with me. But what it did first was freak me out. It made me feel like I didn't know. I like if you told me these things are gonna happen, like you tell me I'm gonna have success, you tell me I'm gonna have this, I'm gonna have that, why would you meet me in a place that feels very dark and it feels very low? Like how can I make this happen myself? That's why I say some things start off in poverty consciousness, because I thought originally if I started writing my books or started going after the success I thought would bring me that prophecy, then I'd be good. But everything I started failed. So I was like, okay,
Yeah,
let me take a step back, and God really had to mentor me and tell me, like, I didn't tell you that. I didn't give you that feeling and that drive for you to go towards that so that you can make it happen. I gave you that vision and that
right.
prophecy because you're not going to get it when you think you're going to get it. I have to give you that so that you have something to hold on to as you grow through what you need to
That-
become, the type of person that's going to be able to sustain that. It's about a foundation. Like, and that's big. That's big. He really taught me the truth behind building a foundation, but while he was doing that, he was also crumbling the foundation I was living on. So it was
Deep.
hard for me.
That's deep.
Yeah, and a lot of the things that he talked to me about, they still haven't come to fruition. So I just, like I said, I asked you that question because it can be, if anybody out there are going through things that they feel drawn to, but it hasn't necessarily manifested yet, I want to
Hmm.
speak on the fact that like it's something you have to grow into. Like it's a process, and I feel like it will change, but you have to also keep that end goal in mind because it it will change over time. Like I thought for sure I was going to be like an author or an actor or like whatever, but it was only because I was trying to manifest the prophecy that was spoken over me sooner than it was supposed to come to fruition. So it was hard. But I kind of wanted to just touch on that. Like, let me ask you about manifestation. How do you feel about that word? Like, have you ever have you ever stepped into a manifestation that you once prayed for and then got it and was like, this ain't it? Or how did you feel about that? Name a time where you went through something like that.
I'm not gonna lie to you, and this might sound a little weird. The word has become very convoluted, has become very um, watered down, kind of almost a buzzword. And manifestation is a very powerful thing. It's very powerful. Um, my own personal experience with it, you know, it's not, I see that word as more of a proverb than exclusively belonging to Christianity. Because you can different things can be manifested. So, if you feel a way within your heart and you never correct that, then that will manifest itself in your actions sooner or later. If you feel a certain way about someone else and you don't address that, it will manifest itself. So, manifestation, in my opinion, is it's a word that's overused a bit, um, but it is definitely a very real thing. When it comes to goals and aspirations and dreams and purpose and calling, there are different things. I think you have to distinguish between what a calling is, what a purpose is, what a gift is, and what a passion is. I think they all work in unison, um, but I don't think you can directly pin manifestation on the cogs in that machine, only because I think the overall idea is if it's going to manifest, then it needs to be in unison with each other. And it's so to kind of wrap this up, because I know I'm kind of dancing a little bit. If you are in line with your purpose, your calling, your passions, your gifts, all these things, then you are actively manifesting, what's going to be, and you're actively chasing and pursuing your purpose. Um, but it's hard to manifest, for things to manifest in your life if, you're not in alignment with God, or, even with yourself. We try to we try for things to be manifested in our lives, but we don't have a center of gravity with our emotions, with our mind. We're not honest with ourselves about situations. Like we have all these different opinions about things, and none of it really is serving you. It's for everyone else. Or you're taking shortcuts to get to your success, or you're allowing people around you, romantically or even companion wise in friendships, that are unhealthy. All that goes against the natural flow of your machine. So when it comes to manifestation, I think it's a very delicate thing, and I think you need to be in unity with yourself, with God, for those things to happen. That's just my personal opinion on that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I feel like sometimes we manic manifest, which just means that like you're in a chaotic, yeah. Like
Good
you could
word.
be in a very chaotic place and still try to manifest. And I feel like that's like I don't know, like you're very like bottled up and freaking out like when is it going to happen? And I always tell people like you don't get manifestation that way. Like when you're in a place of chaos and confusion, it's hard to manifest anything that's rock solid. You most of the time you manifest things if it even comes to fruition. You manifest small things that end up like falling out of your hands because it's not built on that foundation. It's built off of chaos and insecurities and fear and lack and it's just
Yeah,
it's hard to manifest
yeah.
with that. Yeah, that type of energy
Then
can
there's
be very chaotic. Hmm?
and then there's those people that say I manifested her, I manifested him because I prayed about it, and it popped up in the next month, and I'm like, oh, okay, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't, because it's not my place. I'm not God, so I don't know. But just the way people view the word, the idea, the principle is very watered down, and
Yeah.
that's just my personal take on it. But it is a real thing, definitely, and it's a
Yeah.
powerful thing when it's done correctly, when it's correct.
I agree. And like I was mentioning before, I feel like a lot of the times the things that we desire, you have to check your heart posture with it because like I mentioned in my last video, you can go from a place of honor to a place of expectation, meaning like at one point you felt honored to have the things that you were asking for. Like I just want a partner or I just want to be closer to God or I want to build that relationship to you. And I feel like sometimes even after we get the things that we ask for, we shift to expectation now. As in like the
Mhm.
honor is gone. Now I'm just expecting it to get better. I'm expecting it. I need more. And I
Mhm.
kind of say that to segue this in. Like, do you ever feel like the platform that you have has shifted from a place of honor? Like, do you ever feel like sometimes you're moving so fast with the platform that you almost forget the fact that this is still like this is a blessing. Like, this is an honor. This is something that
Yeah,
I want.
yeah.
Well, you never initially asked for it, but the fact that I have this platform is an honor. Do you ever find yourself shifting out of that and start thinking more so about the numbers or the audience? Like, do you ever get out of that place or have to check yourself if you do?
To be honest, in the beginning, when it first started, it was like, man, I gotta, these videos are jumping off. I gotta, keep dropping, keep doing it, because I want my numbers to go up. I want to reach more people. I want to do. But then, I think it transitioned over time, and God kind of matured me and helped me understand, like, bro, listen, even if, and here's the thing, even if when people have these thoughts, it's not a bad thing. It's a teaching moment, because the thing about God that I've learned is that when you have these thoughts and these moments, they're teaching opportunities for God. And if your ear is geared and lent towards his voice, God can use any moment to teach you. So when I did have those thoughts, he said, bro, listen, I hear you on that. Like, that's a good way to look at it. Okay, you want to continue with the work ethic because you want to reach more people. I get that. You're worried about, your numbers falling. I get that too. But understand, if you drop a video and it reaches one view, and it gets one like and one save or one share, that's one person that woke up today, that if you would had you not dropped that video, they wouldn't have not have gotten what they needed enough to save it or share it for someone else. So it's like, even if I drop a video that gets 1,000 views or 100 views, it's going to stay up. And I had to gain that understanding through me having those feelings of, man, my work ethic needs to improve because I'm not getting the views I got on my last video. Like, it was never an ego thing for me. It was more like, this is the first time something's ever worked for me. And I don't want to
Yeah.
jeopardize losing out on that because of my work ethic. So I need to keep going, keep going, keep going. And God said, listen, you can keep going and keep going and keep going. But even if the numbers don't reflect what you're putting in on the back end behind closed doors, it's for someone still, like it's for someone. I think that released me from caring so much about numbers, um, caring so much about shares or followers, because one person gets it, then I did my job. That's one seed I planted, and that's good enough for me. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean the thoughts come. This it's human nature, but I think it's what you do with the thoughts, and if you allow God to really um, address that, because He doesn't mind the thoughts coming. The thoughts are gonna come. We're human. He knows that. I think it's more so about will we let our minds be reshaped and reformed by Him, renewal of our minds, pretty much. For people that don't, and they maintain their own mindset, their own thoughts, their own rhetoric, their own not rhetoric, their own logic, excuse me, that's where you become hardened to God's voice and hardened to correction, hardened to teaching. You're not teachable at that moment moving forward, and then you start to fall. But as long as you lend your voice to God and to wisdom and to wise counsel around you, you'll be okay. That's my
Yeah.
opinion.
That's interesting that you touched on that. And I can only speak from personal experience for me, but I noticed that when I started recording my content, I did it initially just because it was a release for me and it was just something that I actually genuinely enjoyed. It was a form of creative expression. But when I started shifting from that to like, oh my God, like I got views, like I need to see, I got to keep going, like I want this to actually work. And not only that, I started to recognize like, wow, wait, I can actually make money from this. If I keep doing this
Yeah,
or if I keep doing that,
yeah,
like, okay, wait, no, I can make
yeah.
money. But see, there's a way to do everything that has to involve balance because what I started to notice was I started bringing my poverty consciousness into this new experience that I was going through. And I say that because I feel like a lot of people can do that when you're in a new season of your life, but you bring an old mentality with you. It almost
Right.
completely disrupts whatever it is that you're going through. And I say this a lot, but like you can be standing in the palace with a prison mentality. When you're constantly in a completely different place, but you're still hanging on to the old, or you're still
Yeah.
you're operating in a way that says that I have to cling on to this now because I don't know if anything else is going to come. That right there can shift you. It can make you lose your position
Right.
through and through because I feel like sometimes you miss out on the opportunity to recognize how far you've come. And when you do that, you you miss it. You miss the fact that God is doing a new thing, but you just keep bringing that
Right.
old baggage. Like it's not that's not what this is about. You have to have the right heart posture to start to not only trust God, but trust yourself enough to let that go. And I feel like that's a
Mm.
really hard process. So how did you end up breaking out of the old paradigms? Because for me, I feel like success is a mentality. Like you have to break out of the poverty consciousness in order to even be able to believe you can do something like what you do. So how was your
Um,
mentality prepped for where you are?
it wasn't,
Oh my.
and I explained that a little bit. When I started doing all this, my heart, my mind, my expectations, my self worth, my self esteem, all of that was in the dumps. That conversation I had with God was from a very real place that one day where I cursed him out. I was mad at him. I denounced him. I said, man, I can't do this anymore. You're fake. You're not real. That was years of buildup just coming out all at once. Here's the interesting thing about your question. Here's why it's interesting. My mindset wasn't what it is now, but I honestly believe this through obedience. Um, through small do small amounts of obedience over and over and over again, it created a sort of a momentum, a snowball effect, so to speak. And what God showed me with that was you don't have to have the mindset, you don't have to have the self-esteem, you don't have to have, your craft perfected. You don't have to have that. All you have to do is be obedient. And I think as we walk in alignment with our purpose on the path that we're obedient on, I think as we do that, He sends people and He sends, protection in and out of our lives.
Mm.
Um, to help grow us along the way and really reveal to us lessons that we need to learn along the way. So as we're walking out, He's fine tuning, slowly but surely, fine tuning and sculpting and molding and teaching us how to handle the platform, teaching us how to handle expectation or failure and it's a thing that we have to learn on the journey. And I think a lot of people feel like, no, I need to learn all of this or know this before the journey begins, and we never do it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the enemy tricks us, is that we think we need to have all these things in line with our mind, our self-esteem, our emotions, our outlook on life, our relationship with God. We have to have all these things in alignment before starting. And God never said that. God said, just start. Leave
Yeah.
your faith, come with me, was a just start, you know. And I think the more we walk along that path, the more we learn how to conduct ourselves on that path, how to do things. And mindset is major in that, because, you know, he understands that there needs to be some work done. But we'll never understand how that works if we never, you know, jump in the game and start playing, you know. So yeah, the answer to your question is that wasn't the case for me. It was more so I knew going into it, I didn't have the answers. I knew going into it, I didn't have the right mindset. But all I was focusing on was God said, just do it. And I have to have enough faith that he'll just provide the answers along the way. And that's exactly what he did. The more I walked, the more I was obedient, the more people he sent in my direction to help. And the thing about it is, you have to be teachable. You have to have, you can't have an ego in that, because if you do, you'll feel like you'll see the success you're having and you'll say, well, I'm having success in what I'm doing, so I don't need that. But if you're humble and teachable and you don't have your glass full, you go into it and people can pour into you and you get sharper and smarter and you get wiser with how you handle things. So I think the mind is something that God works on as you continue to be obedient through the walk. And you know, that's just kind of what I believe in that. And it's something that's been reflected in my life. And I'm grateful that God didn't require me to be perfect before starting, or require me
Yeah.
to know what I needed to know before starting. He didn't need that. He needed me to be obedient. That was it.
Yeah. I respect that. I respect that because I feel like sometimes well, really a lot of the times why people would turn their back on God is because they're projecting their insecurities and their fears onto him. So it's almost
Mm.
like I'm not going to turn to God because he's going to judge me, or he's like a principal who's going to like tell
Yeah,
me no and like send me to the office every time I do something wrong. But
right.
you really just spoke on like how, I mean, really, you just have to have blind faith. And that
Yeah,
can be the hardest part.
very.
And I'm
Yeah,
reminded there's
yeah,
actually this phrase that's been kind of just, I've been hearing it like all week, but it's kind of like how God approached Moses and he was telling him to build the ark. I've been hearing that consistently. Like, it's just whether I be on a video, whether I wake up, like, it's just like build the ark and the people, the flood will come. Like, there's sometimes you don't know what you're preparing for. You just got to be prepared. Like, you
right.
have to be prepared for whatever it is that it's going to look like. And that can be scary because, I mean, no one knows. It's just like jumping off a cliff. Nobody knows what's going to be on the other side of it. But if you trust the fact that I mean, everything that you've done up until this point isn't working. So it's either you're going to have to do something new in order to get something different, or you're going to turn back. And I say that not to disrespect the people who did, because I get it. Sometimes you have a mentality that's rooted in fear that says, like, I don't know if I can trust this. I don't know what's on the other side of this. So I turn back out of comfortability, and this is what I know. I'd rather go with the demon that I know versus the monster that I don't.
Mm.
So I get it, and I
Right.
understand where that comes from. That can get very scary, honestly, to take a leap of faith into something that you can only see. Like, you're the only person who sees this. Do you know how crazy that is? Like, I've noticed that
Exactly.
I've noticed that myself. Yes, like I've even approached my family with like different ideas and different like mentalities that I have. But essentially, it's like I'm the only person who can see this. So when I talk to them, I'm talking to them from a place of like my perspective, and they're just like, "What are you talking about? Like, I don't get it. You should probably go back to the safe zone because what you're doing
Yeah.
isn't gonna work." So I
Right.
feel like, yeah, like when you're in that season of preparation or transition, sometimes you need to shut up. Like, there are certain things that you cannot say and you can't speak on until you build the arc. They will understand as you go, but build the arc. Stop trying so
Never.
hard to convince other people about your dream. And the only person you really need to convince is yourself. So
Right.
I
That's
had to
it.
learn that the hard way. Yeah, I had to learn that the hard way. Like, a lot of people don't understand the vision that I have, and it's mostly because I'm telling it to small, simple-minded people who don't, they aren't supposed to get it until it's done, you know?
Yeah, they don't. Right.
Yeah, and it isn't a disrespect to them. It's just sometimes it's just supposed to be you and God. It's a walk that's supposed to be between you and him. So we're actually closing up on the time, so I'll close this out with this. As far as a legacy goes, I feel like a lot of the times we either are so submerged with our own worries and our, our own life, that we don't take a step back to zoom out, look at how far we've come, and appreciate where we've been, because it's prepared us for where we are. So when would you say was the last time you intentionally took some time out to just separate from the crowd, put down your worries, put down your goals and your missions and what you're going to do next, to just honestly reflect on how far you've come? When was the last time that you took some time, intentional time out, to think about like how far you've come?
I'll be honest, I've never done it.
Really?
Ever since I started, and I'm being honest, I've never done that. Ever since from the first video that I dropped, it's pretty much been, 100 miles an hour. Um, I did just hit a milestone on Instagram, which is pretty cool. And I thought about taking some time to celebrate with that, but I just don't have that bone in my body right now. Like I want to keep working. I don't want to stop and smell the roses. And that's what I mean. It's just like this fuel that I have, it's a never ending fuel. I don't know how to explain it. Um, I do think there will come a point in time where I want to like sit down for a minute and recalibrate, reset. I don't mean like what I do now, like a day or two. I mean like an actual, maybe a month, maybe 2 months, or maybe a few weeks where I just really reset and just reflect and think on everything I've done, where I want to go next. But as far as now, I haven't had a moment or a designated, space where a time when I just stopped and, appreciated where I am. I just haven't done that. And I want to do it. It's not saying it's bad. I do want to do that. Um, but I haven't had that time yet, and it's not something that bothers me, but it is, to answer your question, honestly, I haven't done that yet. But I think I do want to, and I think I will eventually at some point, but I don't think right now is that point in time. But I do want to do it though.
Yeah. Oh. Oh,
See,
of
now I got
course.
now I want to take a little like a little break and go
Yeah.
do something else for myself. But haven't done that yet. I think I will in the future, but not yet.
Yeah. I
So,
understand that. And the only reason why I bring it up is because I was um I was actually listening to a sermon. I do that a lot now. But anyway, so I was I was listening to a sermon, and I was just reminded of the scripture that said, "What good is a man gaining the world if he loses his soul?" And I remember that when I was I mean, just this whole process, right? Like I have so many goals that I want to reach and accomplish, but I feel like in the end, how are you really supposed to, how can you truly enjoy anything if you haven't allowed yourself to slow down and appreciate it? It's almost like let's say I get the money that I want, or the car that I want, or the house that I want, or the man that I want, or whatever. If I end up getting those things with the mentality of, okay, I got it, what's next? And it's so second nature for us to like want to just keep going. That's why I said intentional time. It can be very hard, because it's almost like you're standing in a manifestation that you're not even aware of. It's kind of like you're just driving, you're on autopilot, you're just going. And see, that can also speak to poverty consciousness, right? Because essentially, and people don't really get that. I feel like every time I say the word poverty, people are like, I'm poor. Like, no, poverty consciousness is not just that. Poverty consciousness is truly just like how you operate. Operating in a sense of lack can look a lot of different ways, and lack
anyway, right.
lack of,
Yeah.
yeah, and that can also mean just having a lack of self-awareness enough to say like, hey, wait, slow down. Like, I look at this, like, look at what I built, look at how far we've come. Like, that can, like I said, it can
Right.
stem from poverty consciousness. You can take, it's almost like the analogy I want to give, or the illustration I want to give, is like, let's say someone wins the lottery.
Uh-huh.
Someone went going from like having $0 just yesterday and now having $1 billion at their expense. If your mindset has not changed well enough to be able to handle the weight associated with the blessing that you just got, then you have $1 million bank account with a $1 mentality. So it's going to be
Hmm.
gone very, very
Right.
easily. So you have
Right.
to take intentional time to be able to catch your mind and your emotions up to the current moment and say, I know that I'm busy, but let me stop. Let me take a moment
Right.
to not only appreciate how far I've come, but like look at the fruits of my labor. Like, look at this. Look at what I've built. And I just wanted to end it off with saying that because what you have built is huge. I don't know the history of your family, but I can only speak to the people, the black people, our community. And I feel like
Yeah.
any of us who have the opportunity to stand in the platform and reach out and heal people and speak the way that you speak, like you have to take intentional time to just take that in because it's beautiful. The platform you have is amazing. I would have never found you if you didn't have the platform that you have. Like, and other people around you, they wouldn't even have the type of knowledge or the wisdom that you give them an opportunity to glean from without that. So I suggest you take the time out and just, just reflect, be intentional with it because I feel like if you end up never having kids, this is your legacy. People are always going to have an opportunity to look at your videos and look at your content and look at what you've done. So I really would love if you could do that. For sure.
No, I definitely hear you and I receive it. It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that you say that. I take that to the heart, definitely. And you're right. I should take some time to really sit back and reflect and look at where I am and
Yeah.
honor that and, respect that. So
Yeah,
thank
for
you for
sure.
truthfully.
No
Thank you.
problem. No problem. And like I said, like everything that I say on my podcast, it's really for me. I'm a little selfish. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. The advice that I give to others, it's really for me. Like I'm gonna look back on this video and the advice I just gave you, I'm also gonna take. Like I don't
Mhm.
give, I don't give people advice that I don't need. That's why when I speak to people, it comes from a genuine, authentic place. Like that's why I said when I first started my content, it was not about other people. So when other people started responding to me, I was like, oh, wow, they're listening. But it was really just for me. Like, I needed to look back at my content and say, like, I needed that advice. And I've done that recently. I've been feeling more drawn recently to go back to all of that, even more so
Yeah.
for some reason. But just looking back on my content, I'm giving myself advice. So, like I said, if there's anybody out here who is listening to my podcast or listen to your messages, like it's coming from a genuine place because it's coming from experience. It's authenticity that we also need to take. So it's advice given to other people, but also given to us. So I really appreciate you being on the show. Thank you, Forrest. This was extremely dope. And again, thank you for just being on the show. I am still gonna buy you lunch, y'all. I try to get him to come out here, but he was like, no, I live in Texas. So I was like, okay, fine, we'll do the Zoom thing, which was extremely dope. This was a new experience, but I wanted to get him out here so I could buy him lunch for being on the show. So stay tuned for that. I'm still gonna do it. And
Well,
for
thank you.
sure. But that's the show, y'all. I really appreciate you for listening in. And until next time, do you have any final messages for us?
No, thank you for your platform. Thank you for what you do. It's definitely going to touch a lot of people. We both know that we've had conversations. So,
For sure.
yeah, I hope you stay motivated and stay, stay driven. And thanks for having me. I felt honored to do it.
Thank you
Truthfully.
so much. That's huge, y'all. I seriously am a fan of this guy. So this is wild. This is wild. When he messaged me back, I was like, oh. But thank you so much. So until next time, y'all. This is actually the season finale of season 1. So give it
I
up
was
for
a
that.
fanatic.
But yeah, this is the
I
season
feel
1 finale. Yes, I ended it off with a bang. But yes, so until next time, y'all, continue to love on yourself a little bit harder and see you next time. Bye.
like,
All right.
Recording stopped.
Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm.